11:13 at the Geekhouse, this time more appropriate to when I usually stream. And stuff along those lines. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay, and welcome to the Late Night Nerd Lounge. One of the last we'll be having for a while because there's so much stuff sitting around, like that light that's been behind me for a couple of weeks now, and stuff new in the box that, chat streams are fun for updates and stuff, and it's cool to chat with folks if they stop by. But the thing is, there's more I want to do on this channel than just sit here and have little chat streams. It's just, there's more I want to do on this channel. And with the summer in particular, I was tossing around the idea of doing a couple of things with regards to the summer situation. So the air conditioner's in the window now, the fan's going, says it's going to be hot and humid for weeks now and not just days. So now that we're into summer proper, we're going to take a look at a few things. And one of them is going to be ways to do tech videos in the summertime instead of turning them into only the sort of thing that happens in the colder months of the year. Those of you that are familiar with my YouTube channel going all the way back to the beginning, I used to, the first round of YouTube videos that I ever did on this channel was in autumn of 2006. So I wasn't yelling over air conditioners and I didn't have heaters or anything going at the time. Plus the heat in my old place was quiet anyways. It was a oil-filled radiator with some electric heat radiators in some of the other rooms. And the fun part about electric heat is you put on a minimum amount of heat in order for the pipes to not freeze, and then everywhere else you literally can turn the heat on as you enter and leave rooms. So if you're going to be in a room, if you're going to leave a room and not use it for a bit, just turn the heat off. You can always turn it back on when you get back in, as long as you know there aren't any pipes. So pick the one spot where there's pipes that need to be kept from freezing, and then just leave some heat on there, and then just turn everything up and down. So for that sort of thing. But more recently, of course, we have air conditioning and stuff going on, and I've done plenty of tech videos with air conditioner noise going on in the background. I want to see if there's a way around that. And one of the ways that I can definitely do something about that is, of course, to do, Greenham style tech videos where it's a narration and music and not so much the audio that was recorded at the time. So narration driven stuff, if I want to move forward with that and stuff, and then just use something like this to record the audio, where I just got to figure out what's going on with this setup here. Let me just check something under advanced audio properties. Yeah, there's no monitoring on this. I thought that what I was hearing was sounding kind of like a chorus effect or something, and that's what the issue was. Well, let me look under filters. I don't have any. No, I have noise suppression, which is RN noise, and then I have a compressor that goes after that. So, and that's set the same way it's always been set. So it's just a software thing. Ever since I uninstalled that special software for Logitech, this thing has sounded worse. But at the very same time, I'm able to actually hear things properly when playing games through this. So I got to figure out what to do about that, or maybe see if Logitech ever rolled out some kind of software update that fixes all of this. But for the summer, what I'm thinking of doing is video essays, first of all. My discussions on what I think of the Update 35 changes in Elder Scrolls Online, for example, would be a really good video essay. What do I have set for? I just have people in blogs set for this because it's just kind of an update on things. So we're going to do that. And so what happened to the stream from earlier? It was called Elder Stupidity Online. Well, the thing is, I went and listened to it afterwards. I usually, listen to these things to put in clickable program guides and other stuff. And I really found myself falling asleep because everything just took way too long. It's like in my early YouTube days when I made videos and it was about topics that were so banal, like being able to charge things by plugging them into a USB hub, that I'd get folks in the comments that are like, "This sucks. Why did you have to do like an 8-minute long YouTube video about something this simple?" And so here I am with I took a half an hour to talk about to do the recap and talk about the whole situation with the job interview. And then I spent an hour talking about some of the other stuff. Are you kidding me? That just takes too long. And I'll prove that right now. So by taking less time to get through all of that stuff and just summarize everything. And of course, the Elder Scrolls Online thing, I read the patch notes and the not the patch notes, but the rationale article that the combat change designer, the dev who actually greenlit the combat changes that have gone to the PTS in Elder Scrolls Online. I read the article. The only thing I disagree with the Elder Scrolls Online Update 35 changes is the flat damage. I mean, if they change the way dots and hots work, if they set it up so that, you throw effects on things, then you have something in the middle that you can use as like a weave attack or something, that's not really that big of a deal. It's just mechanics. If everything becomes too hard, then they can just nerf bosses and dungeon difficulties and stuff and fix the problem that way. The big problem I have with what's going into Update 35, though, is the flat damage light and heavy attacks, regardless of your stats. Elder Scrolls Online is an MMO. It's an Elder Scrolls game, but underneath all of that, it's an RPG. RPGs run off of numbers and stats. I don't need to be playing a game where some wizard who's never picked up a melee weapon in their life grabs a mace, thonks you with it, and then a ripped burly barbarian who is, battle hardened to the core grabs that same mace, hits me with it, and they both hit for the same amount of damage. It's just like, makes no sense. Somewhere along the line, in the name of game balance, the developers at ZeniMax Online have they've completely lost their understanding of what it means for an RPG to actually be a place that you can role play in. The world needs to be believable. Tamriel, as it is presented in ESO, needs to be believable. And it is not believable. It is absolutely not believable when you have this all attacks hit for the same amount of damage. The other part of it, too, and this is something I was talking about and took way too long to talk about, is that ZeniMax dug their own hole on this matter with the heavy attacks recharging your resources mechanic. As opposed to Oblivion and Skyrim, where your power attacks, special attacks with your stamina, drained your stamina, and they did more damage. So you have two attacks in ESO. You have light attacks and you have heavy attacks. And you have medium attacks in the middle, depending on how much you wind up the attack. That sounds like a cool combat system that is somewhat realistic, as opposed to World of Warcraft, where you right-click an enemy and you start auto-attacking. I swung a sword. I swung a sword again. Oh, that one crit. And you just sit there and watch as your character whittles down the enemy. So, Elder Scrolls Online, by being a descendant of the Elder Scrolls series, has more depth to the combat system through that and that alone than anything that WoW has done. WoW is too dependent upon hotbars, and if ZeniMax is trying to nerf light and heavy attacks to de-emphasize them, but still have a little bit of a bonus for weaving, they're taking ESO in the direction of WoW, which is where it came from in the first place. When ESO first launched, it was a pathetic WoW clone with Elder Scrolls Paint. Instead of the Alliance and Horde, you had the three factions. You were limited to your factions areas, so Tamriel was really kind of closed. I started playing in the one Tamriel patch when ZeniMax grew a brain and realized what series this game was in, and started on the path to the kind of player freedom that they support today. So, ZeniMax was well on their way to supporting the kind of player freedom that they are now known for to this day. I mean, ESO feels like an Elder Scrolls game. And what they have now with your magicka and stamina determining everything is fine, and it makes sense. Flat damage amounts do not. Flat light and heavy attacks do not. It's a step too far. They need to come up with a better way of doing this. And so, light attacks just hit a little. Heavy attacks smash the heck out of the enemy and recharge your resources. Why? Your character is exerting themselves with a big wind-up haymaker attack. Why? Why does that regen your stamina or your magicka as opposed to using it up? So the way I would do it, I would put the regen where it makes more sense, when your character is taking it easy and just doing light weapon attacks. Or with the magic weapons, throwing a few fireballs from the Inferno staff or something, light attacks. And then people that regen will get resources from it more so than the extra damage, which according to the devs is too much at the top end and needs to be cut down. And then heavy attacks and medium attacks need to be something that you think about. Right now, there are heavy attack builds that do things like what I was doing with the Dragon Knight. With the Fire Dragon Knight, I was charging heavy attacks all the time and throwing in an instant spell in between heavy attacks because you would never run out of resources and you'd have a decent chunk of burst damage that would translate into a decent amount of DPS. So it's heavy attacks that are broken. Heavy attacks should be like power attacks in Oblivion and Skyrim. They should use up your stamina, and then you get it back when you take it easy at the cost of damage. So a lot of this situation probably wouldn't exist if the game simply made more sense. But these are the developers that let a card game be a major feature of the High Isle expansion when it launched. My parallel to this is Mists of Pandaria on the WoW side. Mists of Pandaria brought pet battles into World of Warcraft, a Pokemon system, if you will. Imagine if the Pandaria, the culture, and the morality story of the Shah and everything, imagine if everything in Mists of Pandaria stepped a little to the side so that the card game could be, or not the card game, so that pet battles could be pushed as a major feature. That's what happened with High Isle in the card game. What should be, Breton overload, high fantasy, Renaissance fair, medieval knights, and stuff like that. It's not so much, especially Castle Navir, with how underutilized that asset is. It's not so much because of this stupid card game, diverting resources from who knows where, ZeniMax is reminding me more and more of Blizzard during Warlords of Draenor. Out of touch, tone deaf, and even pulling some reverse victim and offender nonsense on Twitter with folks like, for example, /Lurk, aka Rich Lambert, posting an RVO tweet, reverse victim and offender, about how those of us who are critical of these changes are just doing knee-jerk reactions. And of course, my day yesterday began with a threat from a streamer who was threatening to ban people indirectly, of course, threatening to ban people who would criticize the game. But the truth is, when you're playing a game that people are criticizing, then, people are going to be upset. You're going to get some of those upset people in your chat. It's just the way it is. So the flat damage is the only problem I have with update 35. Now let's talk about the job interview. See, we're only 15 minutes in. I was able to talk about something in 15 minutes that took me an hour when I tried streaming this earlier. Let's be blunt. The daytime stream sucked. I was falling asleep, took too long to explain very simple things. So bada bing. I used to do that with videos too. There'd be times I'd upload videos and before I publish them, I'd be like, nah, that sucks. Take it down. And I'd do something else. It happens with streams from time to time. So the job interview, to make that short as well, the job interview was for an inventory position in one of the buildings I left a couple of years ago when the company was brought under new ownership and I knew there'd be positions eliminated, probably my own as well. And so I went under the radar and just did some order picking, really basic, dumb, stupid entry-level warehouse work. A week after I shocked the manager of the building I'm in now, the then manager, I should say, he's switched buildings since then. A week or so after I shocked the manager, like, wait, you got all this background and you're picking? The layoffs happened and some very familiar names that I had been working with just a few weeks earlier lost their jobs. So yeah, saw that one coming big time. It's just the nature of the beast. So they're looking for a second shift inventory person. And I went to the interview and it wasn't good. I picked up a little bit of applied psychology since I worked last time I was working in that building. And I paid very close attention to listening a lot to the people on the other side of the table, as well as keeping an eye on things like nonverbal communication, body language, etc. And it was pretty insulting. I cannot believe the extent to which these folks who should know very well what I'm capable of doing and why I would be interested in helping them manage their inventory, especially since if I had stayed, I probably would have wound up as that in a reshuffle or reorg, in a restructuring, if that's what happened, if they wanted to keep me around. I'm very, very insulted that these people would go to such an extent to deflect, downplay, deadpan my skills, abilities, background, experience, and what they should know that I can do for them. It's just, plus they were talking about the position. Oh yeah, well at night it's different than during the day. It's like a pressure cooker. you're constantly under pressure. And I'm like, I deal with pressure as it is because I'm already have a lot of stuff going on in my average night these days. And I have to know what to do when in order to not screw things up and not delay shipments and all kinds of other stuff. So, but here's the thing. Unbeknownst to them, I'm familiar with the people that used to do this for them who were stressed, who the stress of the job and whatnot. I eventually heard of them having strokes and heart attacks on the job. And if those cardiac events happened to disable them, then they were unable to continue in it. So it's just, I'm familiar with tough jobs, but the big thing that matters here is the attitude of the people who oversee it. So these folks were like flippant, neutral, etc., towards the idea of grinding talent and then churning and turning. And I'm thinking of that later. I was like, well, no wonder they're having so much trouble. It's been a couple of years and it's been rough for them. And I was hoping that the Great Resignation, the climate of the Great Resignation would have changed things with them, especially with all the full page ads I saw them running in local news publications trying to staff up, and how they persistently need more people than we do. So they persistently need people more than we do. It's like, oh, they must have it rougher than us, right? Have they learned their lesson? I don't know. I can't really say that. I can't really say that for sure. What I can tell you, though, is that the guy I work for right now has more of an interest in developing talent than what I saw on the other side of that table. So I don't really agree with it totally. I think that people should take initiative first. They should prove that they don't have to be babysat, and then we work on developing them as talent. But if I'm interviewing to be on your team and you look like you really don't care if someone stays or goes, and you don't really care about team building, then if I'm already established somewhere like I am where I'm at, why should I change? This is a lateral move. I'm not coming in off the street. These folks should have known what I could do. And they've had more than enough time for me to, kind of give them a background. Of course, the guy I work for gave them a background on what I'm doing these days, but they could have just as easily played a little catch up and not asked me stupid questions like, well, tell us about yourself, because it's on the script. Why would you interview somebody who spent 4 years in your building and you know full well what they can do, as though they've never worked there before, other than HR bureaucracy? Give me a break. But it does boil down quite simply, and this is something I picked up for, if I ever want to be a manager anywhere. It is mandatory that you develop your team. It is mandatory that you work on professional development of the people that work for you. Because if you don't believe in developing talent, all you're doing is just incurring costs. Training, turnover, HR type stuff, you name it. You don't want to be the kind of person that's the reason why people keep leaving. I mean, if you kind of turn into a trainer of sorts and people keep moving on, then that means you made them better people. But, you can't be the kind of person that doesn't care about developing your team and trying to keep turnover down. So that's the management side of it as we head to the 20-minute mark. And I'm saying like what took me however long it took me way back when, in way less time. So that's that with that. The other thing that I picked up from that was when you go to get a job, it's not just about what you do, how much money you make, what the compensation is. It's not even about the company that you work for. It's about finding good people to work with and for. So just like all I say about this internet stuff does not excuse me from being a decent person just because it's the internet. There's still people involved. Hopefully there's people on the other side that watch this and not robots or something. Stuff along those lines, both now live here in the middle of the night and after the fact, because I know views come in with the daytime crowd after I do these things, because I've been doing it long enough that people have come to associate these things as like podcasty type things, which is good. That's what I'm going for with these chat streams. Although I do want to get back to stuff that is better at podcasting than these things are. So you have all of that and stuff like that. At the end of the day, who you work for is what it's about. It's still about people. Just because there's this entire corporate bureaucracy in corporate America and like all these business books that try to dehumanize the process of running a team doesn't mean that it's stopped being human beings working together, unless it's like in my case with this palletizer machine, literally a Turing test of man versus machine and how they work together. So Nope. Yeah. Nope. Nope. Getting a job is not as much about what people might condition you to think it is about. It's about the who. It's about who you work with and who you work for. Finding good people and being of service to them. Because there's all different kinds of people out there, and sometimes it takes a little while to find the decent ones that are worth working with or for. I don't know. It's not the way my generation was brought up. My generation was brought up to shoot for number one. But, you know, as you get into the real world and you get beyond people's fairy tales, you start realizing that there's a whole nother side to this that you have to learn through experience. 23 minutes for all of the stuff that I used to talk, that I spent an entire stream talking about. How's that, huh? Jazz intermission at only 23-ish minutes in, and then we can talk about some things related to the summer of the Geekhouse. Got to be a bit more careful with that playlist, because that playlist is set to auto resume, so that way the songs aren't like the same old songs over and over again. It will actually progress through the playlist if I go to multiple BRBs. That'll be more of a thing in the gaming streams. All right, late night nerd lounge, and let's talk about the summer of the Geekhouse. So as this stream replaces the one that obviously took way too long that I took down earlier. Yeah, can you imagine that? You know, in the time it spent just to get to this discussion, we covered everything that I covered in the stream. Well, the other reasons why I thought about taking that down was because, you know, I spent all that time streaming about it. But I think, you know, for a larger audience outside of people that follow what it is that I do, it'd probably be better off if I made a video essay about stuff like the weird system in ESO where your heavy attacks actually recharge your resources. So I'm looking to set up for a bunch of different things for this summer. including videos that are doable when we have the air conditioning going and stuff like that. And also a way to add some more variety to the channel through through video essays, which are a huge thing on YouTube that up to this point I haven't gotten involved with. Feels like I'm kind of missing the boat on something. Well, what I need for that, though, is a topic and then a bunch of assets to make a big video about that feels like you're watching a documentary. But I was watching a little bit of Gamers Nexus earlier, and they have some documentary style videos on their channel that are basically video essays, one of which was about, of course, the collapse of Artesian Builds and all the internal issues within that company that basically meant that by the time that infamous live stream, and there's the reroll, but by the time that crap was happening, Artesian Builds already had made several critical business decisions that pretty much, at the very least, stunted the company's growth prospects. I mean, when you have an East Coast team, for example, that is doing more with less people and less resources, and versus the main place out in California, it's just, you know, they have their own business now. I'll have to go check it out and see what kind of system builds they do. I don't really need anybody building me a system. I'm not even going to build a system this year. Yep, that's the final word on the whole summer of the Geekhouse thing. So 20 years ago, 2002, was the summer of the geek. That was summer in college where I stayed on campus and got a summer job working with IT, with the print booth and the computer upgrades for the school, as well as the audio-visual office when needed. And there was also one year, can't remember which year it was, where I was helping the Vice President of Information Services administrative assistant handle all the mail that came in. I just didn't understand the job. I just didn't understand why I was opening all this snail mail and mixing things up, you know, and stuff along those lines. But the concept of an administrative assistant is not something I really paid attention to when I was learning how to code in Visual Basic and stuff like that, you know, and then how businesses operate and stuff along those lines. I didn't really imagine myself as being an administrative assistant, but I figured I had enough of a business background to probably do that in a small business environment if somebody needed someone to. But I think, you know, in my case, I'd be better off as an operations manager at this point if I wanted to go that route with a small business. But the thing is when it comes to the Summer of the Geek, Summer of the Geek was when I got the ideas for building the Silver Bullet, and then that computer was built in November of 2002, which is one of the reasons why I've been tossing around the idea of doing another build around November of 2022. The thing is, though, did a lot of serious thinking and also spec'd out some numbers. With today's, keep in mind, this is subject to change because right now there's a lot of what's driving the inflation is what's called cost of goods sold. So cost of transportation, shipping things, the cost of diesel to truck it across the country here in the United States. So cost of goods sold is a big reason why things cost what they do right now. But fuel prices have been dropping. Even in an expensive state like Connecticut, blue state though it may be, we're down below $4.50 a gallon for gas and below $5.50 a gallon for diesel, from $5 a gallon gas and $6 a gallon diesel. And it's creating some weird situations for gas stations because you'll see like up to $1 difference between regular and mid-grade because everybody bought all regular grades. So they still have the mid-grade around from when they had to price it at $5 a gallon, but nobody wants to buy it anymore. So they're going to have to cut their losses on that one because they've probably been selling almost all regular unleaded all this time for gas because people say, oh, I just want the cheapest. I don't like $4 a gallon gas. And so it's been one of those. But with the cost of goods sold dropping as the demand for everything sputters out, Federal Reserve's doing more traditional inflation countering measures like raising interest rates and stuff like that. With things probably going to come down. And then, of course, there will, around probably September, October, be a drop in cost of goods sold because we can go back to winter fuel with less environmental regulations driving up the cost. So, winter fuel will come back. Will come back in the autumn, and that will drive things down even more. And then, of course, there's the effect of higher sales volume as we approach the holiday humbug season. With everybody buying Christmas presents and stuff, things tend to sell for less because there's more sales volume to support that. Black Friday, Black November, all the holiday promotional deals and stuff along those lines. As it stands right now, though, a guts upgrade, motherboard, processor, M2 SSD to bolt to the motherboard, and RAM for Monolith will cost about $700 when we factor everything in. Let's see, AMD Ryzen 5700X. I found a motherboard that wasn't too expensive, didn't have a lot of extra features I didn't need. It was an MSI, so I found an MSI motherboard that I would like to use with a Ryzen 5700X. And then, of course, 32 gigs of RAM, so the RAM is an upgrade from the 24 in this one. Comes out to about $700. And what we can link up to Twitter, though, for some more hard truths about the matter. You know, so we'll see how much that $700 comes down. But I fundamentally decided not to build a whole new system because why do you get into building computers? To replace buying things with buying upgrades. So you'll get more out of a couple $100 spent on upgrades than you'll get out of, you know, with console gaming, buy a new console. That's the idea anyways. If you can't get that, you know, that efficiency with your costs, then you're going to be spending more money. If you're buying $1,000 computers, if you're buying $1,000 computers all the time instead of $500 Xbox consoles every couple of years, you will spend more money. That's why I'm open to the idea of things like retail conversions, why I want to do more with the Delosaurus, why I want to set up a 2 PC setup over here so I can stream off of these project systems. And of course, set this light that's that thing, put the disc lamp, set that up as a light that I can voice control to get finally some decent lighting around here, as opposed to whatever I look like right now. Although I do look like a guy, you know, playing watching TV in the middle of the night, which is kind of what I was going for. But, you know, get a little bit better lighting. I mean, if I can open up Notepad and have it look decent like this, then just set the light to an appropriate size to add just enough light so that I'm not turning purplish and stuff like that. I mean, look at this. All I did was open Notepad, and already things look a little better just by doing this. This is what I like, except without having to open Notepad. So it's just, you can also do a light in the back or something along those lines and things like that. I'm not trying to look like a celebrity or anything. I'm just trying to look like I actually know what I'm doing, which, you know, sometimes takes a little work. But let's set up for, let's minimize our live control room for this, and let me just fire a little something up. Hope the internet doesn't flake out. Saw some lag on my end during the jazz intermission. I also found this computer switched over to power save mode. I was wondering why it got so sluggish. I was like, what, is my SSD going corrupt? No, actually, I had it in power save mode. So I did a power settings reset on the whole computer in case a system file got corrupt. It's a command line thing for that. Now, let me hook this sucker up to Chrome. Browser mode. Let's go to browser mode. Let's hook this sucker up to my Chrome window here. So here is sort of, we should turn on the right panel again. Let's put everything, let's set everything back up over here. And let's see, make live control room just a hair bigger, which means bring that over and then put this on the left side. Put this on the left side and then have this take up the balance of the space. Looks like I'm covering it up just a little bit here. So let's turn the side panel back on. All right, there we go. Now it fits. I've been talking about Monolith as a $500 computer upgrade. That's not the case. I remember it as $500 because the subtotal of this part list right here was $552. So already we're past the $550 mark. This is the Fractal case, which back then was $89. So those have gone up $20 since then. Whatever. This is 2016 prices, by the way. Actually, $90 in 2016 is worth what today?
Sorry, I don't have any information about that.
You piece of junk. Shut up. Mate actually took the command. All right, I'll do it myself then, you piece of crap. $90 in 2016 is worth 90 USD. Just put a dollar sign on it. It's an American keyboard. Is worth what today? It should go to in 2013 dollars. Also 2015. $9.20. Bump it up a bit. Bump it up. Calculate. Okay. Yeah, so it is a little ahead of inflation. $90 in 2016 is the equivalent of $111.11 today. Yay. So yeah, the prices kept up with inflation, actually pulled a few dollars ahead. So yeah, so let's see, put this back up here. There we go. $90 Fractal Define R5. $68 for the RAM kit, $74 for the motherboard, $320 for the i7, which was only $20 ahead of the non-K version of it. So people were like, you used a B motherboard for non-K. Yeah, but it was also 3.4 gigahertz versus 4 gigahertz standard speed. So I paid Intel $20 to overclock my processor for free. And it turbos up to 4.2. Yeah, so, right. Wow. Feeling dry in here. What do we get? 4272. Okay, the air conditioner does work really well. It's the main one. It should. And so Monolith, I'm like, oh yeah, Monolith this, Monolith that, $500. No, this does not take into account the $300-something in 2016 1060 that I bought before I actually built the system, which is exactly, that's the sort of upgrade cycle that we're looking at. Upgrade your graphics card and then make big jumps on the guts of the system so that your CPU lasts through several different graphics cards. And of course, your motherboard as well. Of course, you might get hit with like PCIe type restrictions and stuff, but I mean, there's nothing really wrong with Monolith. I just hit the limits on CPU or GPU with maxed out ESO and streaming at the same time. But it's a situation where just a thing where yeah, there's been a little bit of improvement in processor, but particularly in multi-core since the days of the Skylake i7, plus Windows 11 compatibility. I could just run this Skylake completely into the ground, though. If it wasn't for Windows 11, I would do that. But Windows 11 has the artificial obsolescence, and quite frankly, this processor, 4-core, 8-thread, hails from the bad old days when Intel couldn't count past 4. So, versus the Ryzen 7 5700X octa-core performance, this thing does not hold a candle to it because of its architectural limitations. So, yeah. It's had its day. I probably will this will eventually end up as my Windows 10 nostalgia system, and I'll probably buy a cheapo Fractal case to put the motherboard in to store it. But other than keeping the system drive, I do intend on pretty much gutting the system. But I don't know, we'll pretty much take it back to integrated graphics because I might take the graphics card with me or something. But anyways, so the $552, if I wanted to, let me go back to that in 2016 thing. Can I open up another one without it popping a second window? Yeah, okay. So that's what, come on. $552.96. Let me just go back to $90 in 2016. It's worth what today? And then we'll just set the year and set the amount to $552.96 pre-tax, of course. For 2016, this would cost more because sales tax would be charged anyways. So if I wanted to pay the same for a guts upgrade, which wouldn't count the case this time, my budget is around $700. So it's just a matter of things getting more expensive and the silent march of time and technology that it has been over 5 years since 2016 when I built this thing. And so in today's dollars, yeah, I should be looking at spending around $700 or so. The thing is, though, $700, how much is that going to come down between now and November? And at the same time, what is the bigger bang for buck upgrade? Especially when we know that one of the things that causes some of the stuttering is when the GPU gets taxed and not the CPU. I haven't really maxed the CPU just yet. I mean, I do max it from time to time with certain games. But the graphics card, darn spinner. The graphics card, however, there's a brewing storm. If you watch Gamers Nexus, you're familiar with this. The 4K series of RTX cards is supposed to essentially start having power problems with potentially stressing the power supply through transient surges and stuff like that. And also the power ratings for those are starting to become an issue. So I think I'd like to get a 3060 and then we'll see how it works. And a 3060 would be like 300 something. That would cost less than the 700 something to upgrade the guts of the system, and then we can move on from all of that. Might be a good video essay too for Summer of the Geekhouse as well. But yeah, 20 years since the Summer of the Geek. As much as it would be fun to build another system, it's completely outside of the scope of what building your own computers is supposed to be all about, as I wrote in my response in my follow-up to this tweet down below. The total cost of building Monolith, ooh, Barney's trending, whatever. The total cost of building Monolith from scratch would be closer to the $1,000 mark in 2016 dollars. It's easy to forget that your objective with PC building is to buy upgrades and not systems. Otherwise, there's no point to it, particularly in the Xbox Series era. The Xbox Series X, which is the console that I would get if I wanted to get into consoles. The Xbox Series X, $500 MSRP. $500, you can catch it on sale for closer to $450. Fully contained system. It's just a pity it doesn't run Windows. A Microsoft product that doesn't run Windows. Woo! Probably. What a mess. But in terms of gaming performance and whatnot, 4K 120 can probably do 1080 60 with a decent amount of punch. I've seen some comparisons between the Series X running 1080p and the Xbox One X, and it's like a PC. It'll run it where there's a little bit better graphics at the 1080 60 mark, as opposed to running in 4K and stuff like that. I'm also curious what that does to heat and RPMs on the processor fan and stuff along those lines. But $500, $500, we knew the consoles would be more expensive because consoles were backed into a corner on power. Consoles were backed into a corner on power. And let me just change the category to science and technology. You might as well. They're backed into a corner on power. They had to make the changes. They absolutely had to make those changes here. Let's see. Where is that? I'm having a hard time finding this stuff because it's different when you're actually live. Ah, there it is. We had a hard time finding. Yeah, there we go. So, $500 gets you a perfectly competent gaming experience in 4K 120. If you're still running 1080p like I am, you're probably fine with that. The only issue is going to be paying for online with Xbox Live fees. That's the part that you don't pay on PC that you will pay on console. And over like a 5-year lifespan or so, what does it add up to here? Xbox, see here, the window. Xbox Live Gold. Let's just bust out the calculator again. Calculator. Give me a Xbox Live Gold costs. We'll leave that other thing on the screen. Xbox Live Gold is roughly $10 a month. Is roughly $10 a month or $120 a year. Times 120, 1,200. 12, what? No. Times 12. 10 times 12. Asterisk is busted on here. $120 a year times 5 is an extra $600 over a 5-year period. So you're up to basically $1,100 for the same gaming experience you get on PC around that mark. It's really, Xbox Live is really probably the biggest ripoff ever, setting a standard for consoles that, oh yeah, you pay something in addition to your internet fee to play games online, whereas PC doesn't have something like that. That's crazy too, because multiplayer isn't gated on PC for cross-platform titles like Forza Horizon 5. It's one of the things I had to look into before I hooked up with Xbox Game Pass and started checking it out. But your Xbox Live fees will close the gap with the PC over the lifetime of the machine. And I can tell you, if it wasn't for Windows 11, this computer could probably just run into the ground. Probably take a while to start maxing the CPU. Probably lose the ability to stream first, but it would probably take a while to start maxing the CPU and stuff along those lines. But yeah, the point of building your own computers is to not be buying whole new systems. So if I build a new system just out of sentimental value, because it has been 20 years since building the Silver Bullet, then it's a complete waste. The only way I'm going to do that is if it's crowdfunded. I'll check the balance on Patreon. And stuff, and then check the books. I'll check the balance on Patreon, check the books, see what's available for that. There really is no point in building a 20-year anniversary system, though, because then we have to start looking at graphics. We have to look at graphics. We have to look at storage, other than one SSD for that we can just bolt to the motherboard for a system drive. All that other stuff. So it's not really the sort of thing that's really worth pursuing, especially if I want to practice what I preach. And what I preach is, quite frankly, that computers are not always better. Quite frankly, they're often more expensive. get into consoles and stuff. Also, keep yourself open-minded to retail conversions, like what we've done with the Dell Optiplexes. If you can find a retail system that doesn't have proprietary gotchas, which doesn't include the Dells anymore, starting with Skylake, there was proprietary gotchas with the motherboards and power supplies, including limited voltage to the PCI Express slots. So basically nerfed the Dellosaurus potential beginning with Skylake. So it's a matter of being smart about things. Especially, I mean, consoles are good, but paying for online is on top of your internet is definitely something that I've not liked for years. So it's just why should PC get this right and consoles not get this right? And then because Xbox sets the standard, the newer, more modern consoles now do this. So yeah, there's a little bit of infrastructure that you have to support. Well, what was the deal with Xbox versus PC? Maybe make it a little less proprietary so you don't need that expense. But yeah, your objective with PC building, buy upgrades and not systems. So 20 years or no 20 years, it's not worth it to build anything. Not at all. Upgrade, yes, see what the improvement is. And I think the best thing to go for is graphics, especially if there's another graphics card shortage when the 4Ks come out, or there's some kind of problem with this power thing that's building up. Another thing I like to do as well is power efficiency. The best system for me ramps up to play the games. The best system for me ramps up to play the games and then drops down to compete with the mobile devices. Mobile devices only draw a handful of watts. And they have enough horsepower to do basic computer stuff. Now, of course, desktops don't fit into that mold perfectly. They still aren't competitive with mobile for non-intense stuff. But it'd be nice if they see how close I could come. That's the other thing, too, that I'm looking at for upgrades, too, with Monolith as it is right now, not spending $700 on starting over until I absolutely have to. Get rid of the remaining mechanical drives, go all SSD, especially as the prices of solid-state stuff continue dropping. The $100 now gets you into 2 terabyte territory versus what I paid to go 1 terabyte a year or two ago. So we'll see what we can do with all of this. Also use a used GTX 1080 to replace my 970 and kind of regret it was probably coming to consider. I want something current. I really don't think I'm a PC gamer unless I'm at least, within the ballpark of what's out there nowadays. With RTX 2, the RTX 2 grands were basically... The RTX 2 grands were kind of the rough draft with ray tracing anyways. I'll probably look at a 3060. The other thing, too, is if something happens to the graphics card, I'm not getting knocked back to a 1060. And, of course, this can go to the other systems as well. We can see, RTX 2060 in a Dell Optiplex with an Ivy Bridge i7, what that does, things like that, or just power supply upgrades in general. So, total cost is closer to the $1,000 mark in $2016. I've been kidding myself with that $500 upgrade fee. I've just been remembering it wrong because the subtotal was actually $550, and that was before some very important things like the Windows license, graphics card, etc. And that was in 2016 dollars. So factor in some inflation, and then suddenly, these custom-built gaming PCs topping 1,000 seem to, not be so wild and crazy. See what we got. Either way, I'll pick what I want, Chico. Thank you very much. So I'll pick what I want. Thank you very much. Anyways, let's see here. Close this out. Yeah, let's close this out here. So we take a look at this whole situation. With the Geekhouse this summer. A couple of things, this stuff that's been sitting in the box too long. And then we have to talk about gaming streams. What exactly is the point of a gaming stream? That's the other thing, too. I mean, I've been playing games offline, going through the backlog and not streaming them. Streaming has been incredibly, incredibly limited because fundamentally, what exactly are you bringing to the table if you just show up and play video games? There are already playthroughs on YouTube. There's already streams on YouTube. There's retro streams and nostalgia streams. It's something I've had to take a very close look at in terms of what exactly do I want to do with play some stuff if I'm streaming video games. Show progression, make it interesting, do something like that, that kind of thing. But it's really been an eye-opener poking around on YouTube lately and seeing, especially the PlayStation 1 stream, the retro streams that just stream game footage all the time, because YouTube does not tie streams to streamers as much as Twitch does. There's an entire scene of just retro stuff. There's also the long play scene as well. If you want to, have some nostalgia about an old game, you don't need to tune into somebody's stream of them streaming it retro. You can just find a long play of it and relive the memories, because it's usually a playthrough that plays all the music and stuff along those lines. So I've had to seriously think about, what to do with that. Forza would be cool. Collabs would be cool. Progression and ESO would be cool. But I also have to think about, would it be better to just make videos? Like if I'm working on a housing project in ESO, we don't really need all the grinding that was involved in that, just the progression as things come together. So it's something that, people that get into streaming and stuff along those lines, and they're wondering why nobody's watching them. Well, why should anybody watch them? That's the whole point. So that's something I got to look at this summer, as well as video essays, getting into those. And those will not all be tech at all. There's a whole bunch of other things I want to make stuff about. Some of the stuff with ESO would be a good thing for that. But there's plenty of things to do this summer. As much as it's been 20 years since I first got into PC hardware is far from what I should be getting into at this time. We also got to see what COVID does when it knocks people out on quarantine later this summer. How much extra overtime is there from that? Then see how much prices drop when we start getting towards winter fuel and all the other stuff like that. So it's something else. Anyways, 12:04. It is now officially the 15th. I'm going to take it easy, set this up for after the fact, then figure out what to do next. Maybe play something else. Something I should do, though, probably come back and play some ESO with the PTS. Let's see how messed up those changes really are. So set that up, get that ready to go, and we'll have some fun with this here. What's this? I never understood YouTube algorithm. Lots of people have tons of subscribers but barely get any views. You mean viewers? How about we shut this crap down right now? Because I've seen people with lots of subscribers that get 1 or 2 digit concurrence when they stream. You know why they do that? Because of all the limitations of live streaming. Time zones. You have to catch it live in order to really catch it live and not watch it as a video later. So scheduling conflicts, time zones, and whatever else is on. As opposed to regular YouTube, where you might like 5 people and cycle through all their videos. That's what the number difference is from. And let's also not forget the format of YouTube watching streams in general. Little box right in the little tiny box on the left on desktop, as opposed to Twitch, where it takes up the whole left side of your screen. So even when someone is live, you have a hard time finding them unless the algorithms recommend the stream to you with the little red live now thing and stuff along those lines. Then don't forget, YouTube is a general purpose platform that is used by more than just gamers. So you have mainstream media on here. So if you've ever watched news on YouTube through a live stream or anything of that sort, wildlife cams, highway cams, etc., that side panel that now barely shows who's live, that side panel who barely shows who is live, well, now they have to compete with ABC, NBC, mainstream media, the whole 9 yards. Let me see here. Let me actually fire something up in Firefox and link up to it. So actually, let's open up 2 tabs and let's make sure they're both muted. Let's make sure they're both muted and let me actually show you exactly what the issue is here. Yep, and here's the results of that. Close that side panel. Let me see. Oh, I'm not signed in on Twitch. I'm not signed in on Twitch if I link it to Firefox. Let's link this up here. Bottom line is, Twitch has the streaming thing down pretty good. Let's link that down there. Twitch has the streaming thing down pretty good, but YouTube has been trying to shoehorn in as much as possible. So here's Elder Scrolls Online. Here's Elder Scrolls Online on Twitch. ESO. Let's see. Link this up here. Here's ESO on Twitch. 1,500 viewers, 1.4 million followers, and viewers high to low, hundreds, da da da. These platforms are established, or this platform is established. People know to go here for streams and all kinds of other stuff. Now, since YouTube, we know, has these UI challenges, YouTube is a platform where if you have any concurrence at all, you're doing a good job. Here's this Kirk XFF something, someone PvPing, and a lot of people watch PvP because it's a different experience and stuff like that, similar to the appeal of esports. And then there's this breaking faces guy with no viewers. That's it. And that's just what's live. If you come over without bookmarking the live specifically, you get the homepage, which pads everything up with videos, because the game directories from people selecting the games are very are set up like this. It's at the point right now. It's at the point right now where if you have concurrence at all, you're doing pretty good. It really just goes to show how YouTube gaming needs to do more for helping YouTubers get discovered than buying all this talent. Like, look, we have Saikuno now. Look, we have Valkyrie. Look, we have Dr. Lupo. Yeah, and what do you have for the little guy? Why should anybody care about YouTube as a place to watch live streams? Especially when on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of there's other things besides. I mean, you have let's rattle it off right now. Videos, streams, and short form are three things people watch on YouTube. You watch your regular videos, you can try and find some live streamers, or you can watch your short form stuff, which is like TikTok. But let's also not forget YouTube has gotten into movie rentals and also free with ads type stuff. So I see a lot of 80s and 90s movies now that are free with ads. There's even some 2000s movies. There's a couple of movies that I never got to see when they first came out that I might actually watch on YouTube for the first time. Never bothered to get DVD or Blu-ray. Maybe I won't get surround sound. It'll be like watching a movie on TV. But so that's really it. I mean, it's not just like people go to Twitch for streams, and Twitch is largely powered by the whole gaming side of it. About 80-something% of the watch hours on Twitch, despite all these years of just chatting and everything, about 80-something% of the watch hours on Twitch are still video games. So, strong brand for gaming. Everybody's clumped together. People know to go to Twitch to watch video games and stuff. And so it is what it is. Let me actually see what World of Warcraft looks like. That's the other game I've got tabs up that I can compare to. Home of Asmongold, S-Fan, and all these other folks out there. And let's see, what kind of differences there are in these directories. Yeah, and again, here we go. Back to browser mode. World of Warcraft on Twitch. I got a Dunkin' Donuts ad. Woo! Yeah, you can tell I'm from New England. 31,000 viewers, 9.7 million followers. You got thousands and whatnot. You got thousands and stuff here. People are trying the World of Warcraft Dragonflight Alpha, stuff like that. And you just have way more people on here. Of course, Twitch is roughly the size of Daily Motion. So it's a much smaller audience that kind of is hooked at the top. What's this? A cat VTuber with a waffle on their head. Well, then you have stuff like that. So here's Twitch. Here's the exact same thing on YouTube. Crusader 3485, some rip dude playing Paladin something, 58 concurrents. Rep Paladin PvP, obviously, 32, 12, and then you get past the channels. Someone's playing Project Ascension, which would get you banned on Twitch for being a private server, so because it's a private server, and stuff along those lines. So you see, YouTube kind of turns into the kind of environment where, first of all, they treat the streams like videos, so you might actually have streams that get after the fact views. And that's one of the reasons why I turn these streams into like podcasty type things. So you have that going on, and World of Warcraft Algalon. What kind of, is that some private server or something? I don't know. But private servers get you banned on Twitch. So let's see here. But there you go. Now, depending on the game, there might be places where there's decent amounts of viewers and whatnot. but streaming on YouTube is just so much newer and people are still getting used to it. Plus, this page doesn't really exist. It's auto-generated because I clicked the name of the game. It's left over from the old YouTube gaming, the attempt to make a one-to-one Twitch competitor from a couple of years ago. So it's all auto-generated. We just went over that last week, by the way, how this can screw up. With Forza Horizon 5, YouTube's directories, somehow Forza Horizon 5 got deleted and the DLC and car packs were being listed as games. So it can bug out quite a bit, actually. Yeah, when the Forza Horizon, like McLaren car pack from whenever and whatnot is considered a game, and you can select it as your game from the drop-down menu. We talked about that. We talked about that a little earlier as well. Either way, Nomad, Targrin, Vanilla, leveling something, random WoW things, someone with a big Pandaren for a thumbnail. Thumbnails be cool. They serve as cover art for your stream instead of just the umpteenth person, showing gameplay, what you happen to be doing at the time. But also, this is combining everyone all around the world because it's just so small. But that's really kind of not an inside, but that's kind of a more detailed look at just how YouTube has so much catch up to play when it comes to streaming and stuff like that. It's a good place to practice, though, because it's a good place to practice, just have some friends hang out and stuff along those lines, because there's no emphasis on concurrence over here. With Twitch, you need your 3 concurrents to become a Twitch affiliate, and the entire culture has this emphasis on 2-viewer Andy, 10-viewer Andy, etc. Doesn't exist on YouTube. It goes back to the old 2-viewer Andy problem I'm always talking about. On Twitch, being a 2-viewer Andy hurts you because you can't get Twitch affiliate unless you have 3 concurrents for a month. On YouTube, you get watch time and subscribers, hopefully, from those 2 viewers that you average, which equates to more views after the fact. So that actually gives you progression towards the requirements to become a YouTube partner, as opposed to holding you back on Twitch. Little details that I pay attention to that people seem to miss with this kind of stuff. 12:15 at the Geekhouse. I hope that clears up a few things. There's a playlist I have, the Multimedia Meta, discussions on content creation, where I'm talking about stuff like this in similar fashion to various commentators who used to really talk about this, but the scene is pretty much emptied out for that. I don't know if it's because of the current situations between YouTube and Twitch, or if it's because what goes up must come down and stuff along those lines. But it's just the sort of thing where, well, hope this was useful anyways. I definitely talk about this kind of stuff from time to time, especially when quarterlies come out from Streamlabs and Stream Hatchet. Although the numbers in those are biased, Twitch gets everything while YouTube and Facebook only get gaming numbers. And we know full well that if it wasn't set up that way, people would see Twitch as the Daily Motion-sized platform that it is. It just got really good at something, so that keeps it popular. If it wasn't for the strong gaming brand, Twitch would be irrelevant. So it's just the way it is. Speaking of Twitch, I suppose while we're at it, we might as well fire up Chrome and get Sullynome on screen so we can look at the start of TwitchCon and what that means for the concurrence, where they are at in the box. Let's load that up and have that be the last thing we talk about. So I want to get this set up and then play some ESO later tonight. See how bad those changes really are in the playlist and stuff. Back to browser mode. It's probably going to pick up the wrong thing. Shrink that down. Back to browser mode. Web browser. Switch off to Chrome. So here's Sullynome. The purple line is peak viewership. The green line is average viewership. Obviously, since the peak viewership was added, this has been compressed. The box between 2 million and 3 million average concurrence represents the progression Twitch has made over the pandemic. Below 2 million, they are down below what they shot up to, or their minimum performance during 2020. And they've of course lost their progression since 2021. So they're at right now, well, there's a couple of peaks and valleys, but look at the gray for the average. The average is what? Let's see. Can we zoom this? No, it's just going to keep changing the size. Set that to 0 then. A little above average. My prediction for TwitchCon EU is that TwitchCon EU doesn't move this very much. that most of the streamers who are expecting some kind of growth from the all-star game known as TwitchCon mostly exchange audiences. People change who they watch, but it doesn't really bring in viewers for Twitch because it is such a Twitch inside baseball thing that only the people who are already into Twitch are really going to be into it. So it's, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see where it all goes from here. Speaking of where it all goes from here, I'm going to set this stream up for the long haul for people for the after the fact crowd, that we can take a look at some ESO and stuff along those lines. 3-day weekend this weekend, so I've got time. Don't have to do all the chores on the first or second day or something like that. We could blow it off until the third. Plus, I got to see when the thunderstorms are coming through on all these days. See if we can not have cable internet get sizzled. So yeah, the summer of the Geekhouse approaches. This might be the other thing I'm looking at here too is the scope of the chat streams. One of the things that went wrong with the daytime stream that I did earlier that I took down was there were parts of it I think that would have been better off as videos or video essays. So the real scope of the chat streams, like I said before, maybe I'll end up pulling a Harris Heller and believing that streams are only good for talking with people about what's been going on and not that much else. I think for the time they take up versus making videos, that's really all they should be used for. If not for the obvious weakness, they can't be edited or crafted into anything. It is what it is. Just like I saw with Alfred earlier tonight over at Alfred TV. He had a whole bunch of spoofers and scammers in his chat. Of course, he could turn on hide potentially inappropriate comments and filter some of that. YouTube has actually started quietly defaulting people to the stricter setting for filtering spam like that. So I'm going to have to go take a look to see if there's any false positives and turn those comments back on. I got a feeling that YouTube's anti-spam features, if you have them turned on in the first place, are about to get a little stricter. In any event, let's get on with our weekend here. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.